The presence of toxic individuals is an inescapable reality of human nature. You will find in every sphere of your life those who are perpetually driven to erode your spirit, those who seek to betray your trust, or those who drain your energy with their constant grievances. This is not a reflection of your own bad fortune. It is merely the unvarnished reality of the human condition, where ego, envy, and the internal shadows of others inevitably manifest in the world around you. You often fall into the trap of believing that your internal state is a victim of these people's actions. You assume that because they spoke harshly, you must feel hurt. Because they acted with malice, you must react with anger. But this is a profound error in judgment. When you allow their behavior to dictate your emotions, you are not merely reacting, you are handing them the keys to your internal kingdom. You are granting them permission to manipulate your consciousness. While you cannot control the existence of such people, you hold the absolute authority to deny their poison entry into your mind. You stand now at the crossroad where only two paths exist. The first is the path of reentry, where you allow the external keynotes of others to dismantle your tranquility, leaving you constantly agitated and diminished. The second is the path of wisdom, where you utilize the insight of the great thinkers to transcend these obstacles. By choosing the latter, you do not just survive the presence of toxic people, you learn to move through their turbulence entirely untouched. You claim your inner freedom not by changing the world, but by fortifying the only territory that truly belongs to you, your own clear, disciplined, and unwavering mind. The individuals who seek to drain your peace often operate through a calculated architecture of psychological manipulation. Their tactics are rarely spontaneous, they are repetitive, learned patterns designed to destabilize your center. One of the most prevalent methods is the shifting and blind. When an error occurs or a situation devolves into discord, they will instinctively reframe the narrative to cast you as the architect of the misfortune, even when the reality is starkly different. They do this to protect their own fragile image, shifting the burden of accountability onto your shoulders so they remain unexamined. Closely linked to this is the practice of gaslighting, the subtle, persistent distortion of truth. They will deny events that you know to have occurred, or they will insist that your interpretation of a conversation was irrational. Their goal is not to convince you of the different truth, but to make you doubt the reliability of your own mind. When you begin to question your own perception, you lose your footing, and that state of uncertainty, you become far easier to influence. They thrive in the ambiguity they create, using their own confusion as a fuel for their continued dominance. You encounter these dynamics in the mundane theater of your daily life. It may appear in the professional environment where colleagues systematically offload their responsibilities onto you while claiming the credit for the results. It manifests in social circles, where whispers and fabrications are used as currency to isolate you from others. It is blatant in the constant, unsolicited critique, the subtle jabs disguised as concern that are intended to systematically erode your self-confidence over time. These are not isolated incidents of bad behavior, they are the hallmarks of a specific toxic psychology that views your stability as a threat to be managed. The most dangerous trap in this dynamic is your own reactivity. Understand that the primary objective of these individuals is to draw you into their chaos. They want you to become defensive, to argue, or to lash out in anger. Because the moment you react with raw, unchecked emotion, you lose your authority. You step down from the high ground of reason and enter into their arena, a place where their rules apply and where they possessed more experience in the art of conflict. By guiding in their guile, you are validating their relevance. You are showing them that they have the power to move you. When you feel the sudden surge of indignation, when you feel the need to prove your innocence or correct their deception, you must recognize this as the critical point of failure. It is the moment where your emotional discipline is most needed. If you act on that impulse, you are effectively consenting to be a participant in their psychological play. You are letting the external actions of another person dictate the contents of your internal life. This is the antithesis of the freedom you seek. You are allowing the behavior of the irrational to override the governance of your own logic. To break free from this cycle, you must learn to observe these tactics with a clinical, detached eye. Do not look at them as personal assaults on your worth. Look at them as manifestations of someone else's internal disorder. Their need to manipulate, their need to blame, and their need to cause distress. These are not reflections of your inadequacies. They are reflections of a fundamental lack of self-mastery in the other person. When you realize that their behavior is a desperate attempt to compensate for their own emptiness, their power over you instantly evaporates. Your task is to remain the calm observer. By refusing to participate in their emotional theater, you neutralize their strategy. You do not need to confront them, and you certainly do not need to change them. You only need to change your own response. When you deny them the reaction they crave, they lose the incentive to engage with you. You reclaim your inner freedom, you safeguard your tranquility, and you affirm that your worth is established not by the fickle opinions of others, but by the steadiness of your own character. This is the beginning of true power, the ability to remain entirely unmoved in the presence of those who have no control over their own spirits. To navigate the presence of toxic individuals without compromising your own tranquility, you must adopt the perspective of the great Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Every morning, as you prepare to engage with the world, realize that you will encounter the ungrateful, the arrogant, the deceitful, and the envious. These are not merely possibilities. They are certainties of the human condition. The mistake most people make is to believe that they should be surprised or offended by such behavior. To be surprised by human follies is irrational as being surprised that a fire burns or that a river flows. Their behavior is simply an expression of their own nature. When you accept this, you are no longer embedded in their actions. You are an observer of the world as it truly is. Marcus Aurelius did not suggest this to cultivate cynicism or to harden his heart against others. He did so to protect his own inner peace. By preparing yourself for the inevitability of human imperfection, you remove the element of shock that usually triggers your emotional response. When a person acts with malice or manipulation, you are not caught off guard. You are prepared. You recognize their behavior as a product of their own lack of wisdom, rather than a personal affront to your character. This distinction is the bedrock of your mental defense. It allows you to maintain your composure because you understand that you are not dealing with a threat to your existence, but merely a reflection of someone else's internal disorder. You must also master the dichotomy of control. This is the cornerstone of your inner freedom. Toxic individuals may attempt to harm your reputation, influence your environment, or provoke your anger, but they possess absolutely no authority over your internal world. Your mind is an impregnable fortress. Its gates are held by you alone. Whatever they do, whatever they say, and whatever they orchestrate, it remains firmly in the category of things external. Your own thoughts, your own reasoned judgments, and your own emotional responses remain entirely within your jurisdiction. To surrender this territory is a choice, not an inevitability. By drawing a clear line between what they can affect and what they cannot, you render their manipulation obsolete. Understand that to hold on to their malice is to rant in a permanent resonance in your consciousness. When you obsess over their judgment, when you replay their insults, or when you plot your own defense, you are essentially inviting them into your mind to rule over you. You are continuing the cycle of abuse long after they have walked away. The Stoic path demands that you do the opposite. You acknowledge their action you classified as a neutral event, and you release it. You not store the poison. You do not let it fester. You filter it through the sea of your own reasoning and allow it to pass, keeping your sanctuary clean and undisturbed. As you cultivate this perspective, you will find that your interaction with toxic people changes fundamentally. You no longer approach them with fear or defensiveness. You approach them with a quiet, observant strength. You know who you are. You know that your value is not defined by their perception, and you know that your peace is not subject to their approval. You are building an internal resilience that is not dependent on the absence of conflict, but on your ability to remain anchored in wisdom despite it. You are learning to move through the noise of the world with a steady, unshakable confidence that someone who has finally realized that their tranquility is alone to keep. True emotional discipline does not require you to become a hollow vessel, devoid a human alien. It is a misconception that the wise are indifferent to the sting of unfairness or the weight despite it. To be human is to feel the impact of the world. It is to recognize when a boundary has been crossed and when a social contract has been broken. The mark of true mastery is not the absence of these sensations, but the refusal to be governed by them. When you are confronted with toxic behavior, feel the frustration that they arise, acknowledge the impact of the act, and then immediately return to your center. Do not allow that fleeting sensation to transform into a persistent state of being. You must practice the art of returning to yourself. When someone attempts to provoke you, a physical and psychological shift occurs. Your breath may become shallow, your focus may narrow, and your instinct will be to retaliate. At that precise moment, pause. In that pause, you regain your sovereignty. Recognize that you are not a puppet whose strings are pulled by the temperaments of others. You have the power to step back, to observe the situation as if from a great distance, and to ask yourself, does this person deserve to dictate my peace of mind? The answer invariably is no. By asking this, you strip the situation of its power to hold you off it. Consider the concept of being unmovable. Think of a lighthouse standing amidst the violent storm. The waves crash against its base, the wind howls, and the darkness seeks to overwhelm it. Yet the lighthouse does not react to the sea. It does not argue with the wind. It simply remains. It performs its function, radiating its light regardless of the chaos surrounding. You are that lighthouse. Your virtues are light. When you maintain your composure, when you refuse to descend into the petty skirmishes of those who seek to manipulate you, you are not being passive. You are being profoundly active in your defense of what matters most, your character. Its discipline is your greatest shield. When you respond to manipulation with calm, reasoned clarity, you effectively neutralize the weapon being used against you. A manipulator relies on your participation to complete their design. By withholding that participation, you dismantle their entire framework. You do not need to be harsh, you do not need to be cold, and you do not need to be unkind. You simply need to be unshakable. Your serenity is the most potent response to their disorder. It is a silent declaration that their chaos cannot penetrate your inner world, and it serves as the ultimate boundary that you set for your own protection. Ultimately, this is about the preservation of your most precious resource, your capacity for virtue. If your life sought to be constantly agitated, you lose the ability to see clearly, to judge accurately, and to act justly. You become a participant in the very toxicity you seek to avoid. By reclaiming your emotional discipline, you ensure that you remain capable of kindness, of wisdom, and of integrity, even when those around you are failing to demonstrate these traits. You are not just protecting yourself. You are protecting the version of yourself that remains true to its principles. This is the path of the sage, to walk through the thickets of human irrationality and emerge completely untarnished, entirely whole, and profoundly at peace. To master the art of navigating toxic dynamics, you must establish firm, unyielding boundaries that protect your inner sanctuary. The first step in this practice is the absolute recognition of what you are responsible for and what you are not. You are responsible for your own judgment, your own actions, and the state of your own character. You are not responsible for the opinions, the emotional outbursts, or the manipulations of others. When someone attempts to project their frustrations onto you, or when they offer unsolicited criticism designed to unsettle you, you must exercise the power of discernment. You examine these inputs as one would examine the weather. You acknowledge their existence, but you do not allow them to dictate the architecture of your internal life. You must define the exact extent to which you will permit toxic individuals to occupy your time and your energy. It is an act of profound self-respect to limit your exposure to those who demonstrate a consistent lack of wisdom. This is not about avoidance. It is about intentionality. If a relationship consistently results in the erosion of your tranquility, you have a duty to yourself to curate your environment. You may need to reduce the frequency of your interactions, or in extreme cases, establish a permanent distance. By doing this, you are not acting out of malice toward them. You are acting out of a commitment to the preservation of your own moral clarity. You cannot lead a life defined by virtue if you are constantly submerged in an environment that rewards the opposite. Furthermore, you must guard your self-worth against the external assessments of others. Toxic individuals often use their words as tools to define your value. They may categorize your successes as failures or your restraint as weakness. You must view these attempts for what they are, mere noise. Your worth is not a variable that fluctuates based on how another person perceives your character. It is an absolute, rooted in your commitment to reason and your alignment with the truth. When you allow your sense of self to be tethered to the shifting winds of someone else's opinion, you surrender your autonomy. Instead, anchor your identity in the state of your own integrity. When you know who you are and what you stand for, the criticisms of the misguided become irrelevant. Implementing these limits requires a specific type of courage. There will be moments when maintaining your boundary feels uncomfortable, or when you fear the repercussions of your detachment. Do not be swayed by this unease. It is merely the resistance of your old habits attempting to reclaim their territory. Stand firm. Remember that you are not being unkind by refusing to engage with dysfunction. You are being wise. You are setting a standard for how you will be treated and, more importantly, how you will allow yourself to be influenced. By maintaining these boundaries with consistency, you are signaling to the world and to yourself that your peace is not a commodity to be traded, but a foundation to be defended. As you grow in this practice, you will find that the craft that once consumed your hours begins to lose its grip. You are no longer a participant in the drama of others. You are an observer, a gatekeeper, and a sovereign master of your own thoughts. You will enter into the challenges of each day with a reservoir of strength that was previously drained by unnecessary conflicts. This is the fruit of setting limits. You gain the capacity to focus your entire being of events that truly matter, your actions, your contributions in the continuous refinement of your own character. In the silence of the space you have cleared, you will finally find the clarity that is required for the highest expression of your human potential. The establishment of boundaries is not an act of hostility. It is the ultimate expression of self-mastery. To create a space where your peace remains undisturbed, you must cultivate the demeanor of a marble statue, unmoved by the shifting currents of external cares. When you are forced to define your limits, do not do so with a voice trembling with anger or eyes clouded by resentment. That would be an admission of your own instability. Instead, your face of calm, resolute clarity. Your boundary is your truth, and a truth spoken with quiet conviction requires no defense, no aim, and no apology. It simply exists as a line that others must respect, or find themselves unable to cross. Consistency is the armor that protects your boundaries. If you allow a transgression to pass unaddressed today, you are signaling that your sanctuary is permeable. If you respond to a manipulation with silence now, but erupt in frustration when the same tactic is used tomorrow, you've abandoned your post. You must apply your standards with unwavering authority. Whether the pressure comes from a stranger or someone you have known for years, the rule remains the same. You do not permit the invasion of your mental territory. This predictability does not make you rigid. It makes you reliable. It shows that your peace is not a convenience you can be talked out of, but a core tenet of your existence. You must also learn the critical discipline of separating your emotional state from your outward action. It is entirely possible, and indeed necessary, to remain internally composed even when you are fully aware of the friction in your environment. When someone crosses a line, you observe the intrusion with a cold, clear eye. You feel the stirrings with annoyance, but you do not allow those feelings to dictate your conduct. You do not let the frustration spill over into your words or your posture. By holding your composure, you keep the power within yourself. You remain the master of your own behavior, refusing to let another person's lack of discipline become the catalyst for your own decline. This practice of steady, client boundary setting transforms your daily interactions. Those who thrive on chaos will soon realize that they have no leverage over you. They will find that their attempts to manipulate, to provoke, or to insult are met with a calm indifference that offers no reward for their efforts. They will see that you are not a participant in their gain. You are an immovable object, and the energy they expend trying to shift you is wasted. As is the profound strength of the sage, you do not need to fight to win. You win by simply refusing to lose your composure in the first place. You remain entirely in command of your internal landscape, protected by the ironclad walls of your own discipline. Ultimately, the boundary you set is a promise to you so. It is a vow that you will no longer prioritize the comfort of others at the expense of your own integrity. You understand that your primary duty is to keep your own mind clear, your own judgment sound, and your own actions aligned with the high standards of virtue. When you maintain this discipline, you will not close yourself off from the world. You ensuring that when you do engage, you do so from a position of strength, clarity, and genuine peace. You become a person who moves through the noise of human falling with the quiet grace of someone who knows exactly where they stand and what they will not allow to move them. To attain genuine tranquility, you must arm yourself with specific mental instruments, scripts that allow you to process the day's frictions without being consumed by them. The first of these is the practice of the mental brain dump. When you feel the weight of unfinished tasks, of the lingering sting of the shocked word, do not attempt to solve them in the late hours of the night. Your mind is not a courtroom, it is a sanctuary for rest. Instead, take a physical pen and paper and commit every single word to the page. As you write, you are not merely recording data, you are performing an act of liberation. You are taking the noise from the internal landscape and placing it into the external war where paras. Once your list is complete, you must address these concerns with a declarative statement that anchors your reason. Look at your paper and say aloud, or with firm intention in your own silence, these precise words. These matters are now recorded, and they are held safely for the clarity of the morning. I have done all that is within my power for this day. My mind is now permitted to release its grip, and my spirit is commanded to rest. Notice the power of this specific script. It serves two vital functions. First, evaluate your efforts by acknowledging that you have indeed done what you could. This prevents the ego from spinning stories of inadequacy or failure. Second, it establishes an absolute boundary. It creates a partition between the past and the future, ensuring that the middle space, your time versed, remains inviolate. By speaking this truth, you are shoved in from a state of anxious reality to one of calm, deliberate governance. You are no longer a victim of your own racing thoughts, nor are you a servant to the endless demands of the world. You are the master of your internal kingdom. By utilizing the script, you demonstrate that you understand the fundamental Stoic law. Some things are within your control and some things are not. You have controlled what you could by organizing your tasks for tomorrow, and you have wisely accepted that what remains is beyond your current reach. This is not just a technique, it is the manifestation of your commitment to inner freedom. Let the page hold the burden, and let your mind inherit the peace it so rightfully earns. The second pillar of your mental script engine is the protocol of rhythmic regulation, specifically designed to override the body's instinctive urge toward anxiety. When you feel your pulse quickening or your thoughts spiraling, you must engage the physical hardware of your nervous system to restore authority. This is the four-part breathing sequence, a method of grounding that signals to your entire physiology that it is time to transition from high-alert, reactive survival to a state of profound, deliberate calm. As you lie in the stillness, initiate this cycle. Inhale through your nose for a count of 4 seconds, feeling the air fill your lungs with intentionality. Hold that breath for a count of 4, letting the stillness exist between the currents of your life. Exhale for 4 seconds, releasing the physical tension held in your shoulders and your jaw. Finally, hold the emptiness for 4 seconds before beginning again. While you perform this, you must anchor your mind with a specific, unshakable script. Speak it internally with the weight of absolute truth. The words you use are these: today is finished and the path is unchangeable. Nothing that occurred today is worth the sacrifice of my internal tranquility. I am the guardian of my own mind, and I choose to remain centered in this silence. A script is not a mere suggestion. It is the command issued to your own consciousness. By pairing the regulation of your breath with these words, you are performing a psychological reset. You are training your brain to associate the feeling of physical calm with the philosophical reality that your worth is not tied to your daily output. If you find your mind wandering back to the chaos of the afternoon, you do not judge yourself. You simply return to the 4-part cycle, you repeat the mantra, and you restart the count. You are building a habit of resilience that will serve you in every room you enter. By mastering the ability to silence the storm of your thoughts through this rhythmic discipline, You become a person who cannot be shaken by external noise. You become a mime, a steadiness. Where the next day brings its inevitable pressures, you have the foundation of this nightly peace to draw upon. You are no longer someone who merely reacts to life. You are someone who governs their engagement with it. Let the breath be your anchor, let the sweat be your shield, and let the silence of the night be the foundation of your enduring virtue. The architecture of your mind has been fundamentally transformed today. Look closely at the heavy chains of social approval and overthinking that used to bind your spirit. They are nothing but dust at your feet. From this moment onward, you are no longer a helpless spectator in the theater of other people's confusion. You are no longer a leaf blown about by the careless words of an associate or the cold glance of a companion. You have reclaimed the governance of your own consciousness. You have stepped into the world with a deep sense of self-mastery, a calm entity who moves through the chaos of humanity completely untouched, completely clear, and completely free. This profound truth is not a luxury meant for the unexamined minds of the crowd. It is a sacred practice meant only for those who possess the emotional discipline to cultivate it. If these eternal insights have fortified your spirit, if they have added clarity to your boundaries and tranquility to vision, unless ensure this wisdom reaches the rest of the intellectual circle. Express your silent alignment with these principles by interacting with the icons of affirmation below, helping this truth circulate to those who are still searching for their inner freedom. Your fortress of reason is built, your guard is set, and your scripts are ready. Do not look back at the anxiety you left behind. Carry this absolute stillness into every room you enter. Let the room ripple its foolishness against the stone walls of your clarity, while you remain a monument of unshakable peace. Look to the next presentation on your screen to deepen your mastery of human nature. Stay strong, stay wise, and keep living your truth.